And we are live. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and race fans everywhere. Welcome to this edition of Burnin Rubber, the socially distanced edition, which will be going out on YouTube, Anchor, and Spotify in the coming hours or days. My name is Sterling Siemens. I'm joined by my regular panelists, Justin Palmer and Hal Estep. Tonight is June 5th, 2020. We've got a stacked show tonight, fellas. How are y'all doing tonight?
Doing pretty good.
Fantastic. Justin?
Yeah, it's been quite a week, but lots to talk about. Oh, racing on the racetrack, schedule changes off the racetrack, and controversy all around. Let's do it.
We got a lot to talk about. Let's get it out of the way. We'll start with recapping the NASCAR weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway. To start with, the Food City presents the Supermarket Heroes 500. This was on Sunday afternoon, and it ended up being quite the interesting show. There were a lot of drivers that led sizable chunks of the race, but it ended up being Brad Keselowski won this race. The nod to Larry Mack there. But yeah, Larry Mack could say it better than I ever could. But again, Brad Keselowski won the race. He won at Bristol. It's his second win out of the last three races, and he got the lead for the final time in the race after Chase Elliott and Joey Logano tangled with each other, going for the lead with 3 laps to go, coming to 2 to go that time. So I guess there were other events that happened, including Denny Hamlin, who had the lead late, and then, well, for lack of a better word, he just choked it away. And there was a confrontation between Joey Logano and Chase Elliott on pit road after the race, so more controversy with Chase Elliott there. But let's start with Justin Palmer on this discussion. Your overall thoughts on the Bristol race on Sunday?
That was a perfect race. And very rarely do you say that, but it was a perfect race. I don't think I've seen a more universally loved race in quite some time. I mean, obviously, it's the number one race right now on Jeff Gluck's poll. Oh, this was absolutely fantastic. The PJ1 made this race very interesting, and the high lane, the low lane were all working. This was Bristol at its peak. And it, of course, it produces a classic Bristol finish. As Denny Hamlin, and I mean, for a lack of a better term, he absolutely choked that win away. And that was his. And then you had the Joey Logano versus Chase Elliott incident to top it all off. It was just the perfect blend of a race. I know Chase Elliott fans are mad. I know Joey Logano fans are mad. But I'll tell you who the one fan base who's walking away from that race very happy, Brad Keselowski. I'm hoping he gives Chase Elliott a very nice gift for Christmas, because Chase Elliott has gift wrapping him now, not 1, but 2 races this season.
That's right. Chase Elliott, with that late pit call by crew chief Alan Gustafson, basically handed the Coke 600 win to Brad Keselowski. But, I mean, talk about being at the right place at the right time. Hal.
Twice.
Twice. Hal, overall, your thoughts on the Food City Supermarket Heroes 500?
You know, that short track racing is all I could think about that ending. That sentence right there just says it all. It was a great race, and to that point, and it wasn't even missing anything. It kind of just felt like your great Bristol race. And then you had 2 guys who have a history, and they wreck each other, handing the win to one of their teammates. I mean, Brad Keselowski, he must have had a big smile on his face. Joey Logano wrecked. I've had my problems with him, and I get to pass him for the win. Cool. Chase Elliott gives me another win. That's my best friend in the world right now. It's got to be a great time to be Brad Keselowski. And it was a great race with, it had its wrecks where you kind of were going, well, it's the usual suspects, but not the usual incident. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. got in a wreck, and it wasn't his fault. So that was good for Ricky that it wasn't his fault, not good that he wrecked. He also ran into my pick, Kurt Busch. All of my picks for last week wrecked. So that says a lot about how I'm feeling really about my picks.
Well, to be fair, my picks didn't do so well. We'll talk about the Xfinity race later when we get to that. But my pick to win Sunday was Matt DiBenedetto because I figured, he's riding on a lot of confidence. Bristol is one of his better tracks. He finished 31st, multiple laps down. He actually got into an accident on the backstretch. It was that big accident with Ricky Stenhouse after he got turned when he checked up for Matt Kenseth, who was slow off the corner, and Jimmy Johnson got in the back of him, turned him into the wall, and then Stenhouse came back up the track, just got clobbered by Cole Custer, Tyler Reddick, Alex Bowman also got a big piece of it. It was kind of the big one at Bristol on the backstretch going into turn 3. And it's a shame because Stenhouse was actually having a pretty good run up to that point. But yeah, overall, just my thoughts on the event. It really was a good Bristol race. Probably the best daytime race that Bristol has had in a really long time. And that says something because the night race tends to get all the attention nowadays. Like, it's always been the night race at Bristol. It's one of the go-to events to cross it off the bucket list. The day race has kind of lost some momentum in the last few years. I mean, you look at the stands. I mean, obviously there was no one there because of the pandemic, but just even before this year's race during the day, the stands haven't really been full for the daytime Bristol event. But it was racing like what we saw on Sunday that reminded us just how great Bristol is in general. You had a lot of guys leading. Brad Keselowski, he led 115 laps. Jimmy Johnson actually didn't lead any, but he charged his way through the field. Clint Boyer was second. That's his best finish of the season up to this point. Kyle Busch led 100 laps. Denny Hamlin led the most at 131 and then basically had it in the bag, and then he just choked it. I mean, he got out of the racing line, then got up high and tangled with a lapped car. Choked it. Chase Elliott led 88 laps. Ryan Blaney, before he crashed out, had led 60 laps. So there were a lot of faces up at the front. No one driver was, I would say, the most dominant. It was just a really fun event, and especially with Elliott and Logano, which we'll talk about now. That's just, to put it in Denny Hamlin's phrasing, short track racing. Short track racing. I mean, that was fun. But I will say, Chase Elliott, kind of questionable, that maneuver. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but we'll go to Justin to start this. The incident between Elliott and Logano, I mean, it probably could have been avoided, but then again, it is short track racing. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I first want to say that part of the reason why Bristol hasn't had the attendance is because it has rained almost every single year, or we have gone down to Bristol, or the threat of rain. And we've had good races at Bristol in the spring race. You look back at Kyle Larson versus Kyle Busch back in 2018 or 2017, I forget which one, but that was a good race. Bristol knows how to do good races both day and night. However, back to the Logano versus Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott overdrove it. And Chase Elliott is an aggressive driver. You have to be aggressive in Hendrick equipment if you are going to get results. And him being over-aggressive kind of finally caught him for a race. He overdrove that corner, or he knew he wasn't going to make it, and he took Joey Logano out with him. I mean, it's basically driving. He basically did an iRacing move or a NASCAR or whatever NASCAR video game where you know you're not going to make the corner at a short track, so you just dive it down in there and hit the car right up next to you. That's how you play video games at Bristol, at Martinsville, at Richmond. That does not work, however, in NASCAR or the actual event. So Chase Elliott overdrove it. I get it. It's 3 laps to go at Bristol. You're not going to have much time. And if Joey Logano had an extra lap, he would have won that race. I absolutely guarantee you, had and Chase Elliott not made that move, Logano would have been in victory lane. And so he basically took him out, praying that it was going to stick, and it did not stick. Like, the PJ1 is pretty sticky, but it's not that sticky.
Yeah, Hal, your overall thoughts on the Elliott Logano tangle?
My thoughts are that it was something that you kind of can't blame him for doing it. It's 3 laps to go at Bristol. You want the win as badly as anything. And you're really riding a hot streak lately, so you might as well go for it. However, Chase Elliott said it himself. That was on him. That entire wreck was on him. Joey Logano is right to be angry. However, I have no doubt in my mind that if Joey Logano was in that situation, he would have done the same thing. So, in a way, I'm kind of going, all right, Joey, we all know. And you would have said it's just what happens at Bristol afterwards, too. So that's where I have a little problem with Joey's reaction. But otherwise, you know what? That's Bristol for you.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why Chase did it. The only thing I probably would have changed if I were in Chase's position is to try to do that on the last lap in the last corner instead of 3 to go. Because, I mean, obviously, it's go time. You want the win. And I found it ironic that Joey Logano basically called Chase Elliott childish for, I guess, their conversation they had on pit road after the race. And then you look back at Logano's history of being in brawls with drivers and how typically his crew is the one that gets in the middle of it. So
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Logano, this is the first time when Logano actually has to stand up for himself rather than hiding behind his pit crew. So, Kyle Busch and Tony Stewart can attest to that greatly.
Oh, yeah. And Denny Hamlin, too. So, I don't know. There was that caught me by surprise. But in all seriousness, though, it's fun to see a rivalry, and it's short track tempers and short track racing. So we'll see how they progress into the next weekend of races, at least on the Cup side. Over on the Xfinity side, there was another bit of controversy involving a number 9 car, except this number 9 car actually won the race instead of finishing 22nd like Chase Elliott did. Noah Gragson in the Xfinity race grabbed his second win of 2020, second win of his career also. But he did it by basically bumping and nudging his teammate Justin Allgaier out of the way with about, I want to say it was 5 laps to go. And at the same time, Allgaier, once he got up in that high groove, he could not recover, and he wrecked on the backstretch. Needless to say, Allgaier was pretty disappointed. His wife on Twitter also basically called out Noah Gragson, saying what he did was not cool, and basically sarcastically saying, way to be a teammate. But Noah Gragson got his second win of the year, second of his career. Justin, we'll start with you. Your overall thoughts on the Cheddar's 300 won by Noah Gragson?
First of all, I gotta say, great job to Fox X Sports 1 for this race, and specifically to Kyle Busch and Kurt Busch. I was not expecting that well of a driver combo to be calling this race, but I don't think I would have had it any other way. Hey, this was another fun race. You had action early, you had action in the middle, you had action in the end. The PJ1 I thought was better on the restarts. It's where the bottom lane was actually able to hang with the top lane on the restarts at least. And then you had the cherry on top at the end, and with another bump and run and for the victory. And I'll say this, it's short track racing, it's Bristol. It's for the win. It's the same exact scenario, only it worked for Noah Gragson. And it doesn't stink that you had to do it to a teammate. Yeah, there's a little bit of something to be said about not wrecking your teammates, especially with a very experienced veteran in Justin Allgaier. who has been one of the most consistent faces in the Xfinity Series now for pretty much a decade at this point. So, yeah. And keep in mind, Justin Allgaier doesn't have a win yet this season. Noah Gragson already has one from Daytona, which kind of got swept under the rug after that week. So he's definitely rubbing me a Tony Stewart kind of vibe. He's giving me these Tony Stewart kind of vibes where he's going to wreck you on Sunday, buy you a drink on Monday, a type of driver. That's kind of the guy I'm starting to see. And it's not because he's climbing the fence, although I appreciate that coming back. But it's going to be interesting to see what Gregson's able to do going forward. Because keep in mind, he's a candidate for the 48 car. We all know he is a potential candidate because he is a junior motorsports driver, which is in relationship and has two drivers right now driving for Hendrick. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But Noah Gragson gets a second win. I would be mad if I'm all guy, but it's final laps of Bristol. I mean, all bets off.
Yep. Hal, your overall thoughts on the Cheddar's 300?
I hate to say it twice about each race, but it is Bristol. This is just how it has to end. We're going to end with some contact. Someone's going to have their feathers ruffled, and someone's going to go home happy. Now, I will say Noah Gragson was pretty apologetic after the race. You never want to wreck your teammate, that's for sure. And when I think about how he does already have one and Allgaier doesn't have one, all I can think is, well, that's not his concern. His concern is going out there and winning the race. I mean, Justin Allgaier is a teammate and all, but you're also competing with your teammates. This is one of the rare sports where you compete with your teammates. And I will say that I'm sure he'll keep it in mind next time he's around Justin Allgaier near the end of a race, because these guys have long memories. Justin Allgaier did not take it well, and understandably so, but this is something that will get smoothed over in the driver meetings, I'm sure, the team meetings. And if it's not, then I'm sure Junior Motorsports will be very upset with the next outcome from this.
Yeah. I will say it's interesting because I feel like over the last few years with Gragson being in the sport, he's cultivated a reputation of being like Tony Stewart, as Justin mentioned. Just not afraid to ruffle some feathers and bump people out of the way. It can rub some viewers the wrong way, though. But the thing that I also know about Noah is that even if he isn't the best driver out there, he is really, really popular with some of the younger fans in NASCAR. That's something that I'll admit caught me by surprise. But, he's out there, he's promoting himself, he's interacting with fans over on Twitter, and you see it quite a bit with what he's done, even with promoting this mobile game app. It was PUBG last year during the later stages of the Xfinity season last year, and he's still just interacting with that generation of fans. It's like he's kind of like Tony Stewart for a generation that has been heavily consumed by Fortnite. I guess you could put it that way. Although it will be interesting because, this isn't the first time he's gotten together with some of his teammates. Just a few weeks ago, we were talking about how he was getting into it with his teammates and they were not happy with some of his antics out there. If the drivers have long memories, and a situation like Logano v. Kenseth 2015, if something like that festers, it ain't going to be pretty. Plain and simple. It's not going to be pretty. But we've gone on about the Bristol weekend, so let's move on. Let's go on to my spotlight. Sterling Spotlight, this segment that I want to talk about. Some drivers that I was really impressed by over this last weekend. I'll start with Christopher Bell. After having a disastrous start to his rookie campaign in the Cup Series, He got his second top 10 finish in the last 3 races. He finished, I think it was 9th, if I remember correctly, on Sunday at Bristol after starting 35th on the starting grid. So tip of the cap to Christopher Bell for that. Second driver I want to highlight, Myatt Snyder. This season is his first season that he's ever taken part in Xfinity competition. And he's driving a partial schedule with RSS Racing, or not a partial schedule. I think it's a full schedule that he's running, but he's splitting it between Richard Childress Racing and RSS Racing. And Myatt Snyder got his first career top 5 finish in the Xfinity Series on Monday night, running in 5th for RCR in that Tax Slayer Chevy. So congrats to Myatt on that great accomplishment, his first top 5 finish in Xfinity competition. Now we get to some of the unheard of guys. Brandon Brown. This is his second consecutive top 10 Xfinity Series finish and his 3rd overall of 2020. In fact, if you look at his statistics from years past, the most top 10s that he had in one season, I mean, he got his first career top 10 Xfinity finish just last year, and that was at Daytona. Now he's gotten 3 top 10s this year driving at Daytona, which, it can happen anywhere. But he's also gotten top 10s at Charlotte and Bristol. So, I mean, obviously something's going right for that team.
Keep in mind, he's ahead of Michael Annett for the final cutoff spot right now in the playoffs.
That says something, considering how Michael Annett runs for JR Motorsports, for Dale Jr.'s team. I mean, it really says something there. Moving on to the next driver we want to talk about, Josh Williams. Josh Williams, in the past, he's been a long-time stalwart in ARCA competition. Ran several races, over 100 ARCA starts to his career, to his resume. And he ran the full season last year, getting a top 10 finish, I believe, at one of the super speedway tracks. But now he's gotten his second top 10 of the year. He got a 10th at Fontana out in Southern California earlier this year. Now he gets a 9th place finish here at Bristol. Overall, really strong run for Josh Williams. It's really the little guys who are making their name known this year in a series that markets itself on being where names are made here. Another thing, Timmy Hill got a top 20 finish at Bristol in the Cup race. Kudos to Hill for bringing home that car and getting a top 20 finish. He finished ahead of Martin Truex in that race, so he'll have that to at least smile about. Also, I think Truex got in an accident during that race, but still top 20 ahead of Truex for Timmy Hill. And last spotlight to talk about, Front Row Motorsports. John Hunter Nemechek finished 13th and Michael McDowell in 14th. We'll talk about Front Row Motorsports later on in the show, but it really seems like with their driver lineup this year, they're picking up a lot of momentum, and they're doing better overall as a team this year. So it'll be fun to see what they do. And with that concludes Sterling's Spotlight. Now, let's move on to a completely different subject. Not completely, but it is still on the basis of racing. But in terms of tone-wise, we go from positive to pretty bad. But this is something that needs to be addressed. The Indy Lights season, the Cooper Tires Indy Lights season, has been canceled for 2020. Now, the Indy Lights series, for those who aren't familiar with the series, it basically is a number 2 to the IndyCar Series. What the Xfinity Series is to NASCAR, that's what Indy Lights is to IndyCar. But the Indy Lights series, they announced on, I believe it was Monday, that they would not be able to commence their season for 2020. I'm going to share the screen on an article from racer.com once it pulls up here. I can just read it. This is courtesy of Marshall Pruitt from racer.com. The 2020 Indy Lights season has been canceled. The decision comes in reaction to an ever-shrinking NTT IndyCar Series calendar that has left the series with insufficient track time to hold its sessions. I'll go ahead and share that now. So, according to Dan Anderson, the owner and CEO of Anderson Promotions, the effects of the global pandemic on business, including racing, have been severe. The changes to our overall calendar of races, as well as each event weekend scheduling and the ability for some of our drivers to compete, has impacted the Indy Lights series far more harshly than our other two championships. With less of a cushion to begin with, it became increasingly apparent that the 2020 season was in jeopardy, and the best plan was to take pause, reconstitute for 2021, and do our best to enhance the Indy Lights championship for next season. Now, it should be noted that the Indy Lights series, over the last few years, they have really struggled with getting some sizable car counts at these events. For example, Hal and I, we went to the Gateway IndyCar weekend in St. Louis last August. And if I remember correctly, Hal, you can try to corroborate this information with me. There were not a lot of cars in that Indy Lights race. In fact, there might have been, I don't know, less than 10.
Yeah, there were not a lot at all. And the biggest thing to me was that there were two cars in front of everybody. Everybody else was competing for third, and it wasn't close.
Yeah, and those two guys who were basically the big competitive cars there, that's Rinus VeeKay and Oliver Askew, and those two are IndyCar rookies this season. But yeah, Indy Lights, they've been really struggling with car counts lately, and the price for the cost about making cars and repairing damaged cars if it happens, it's a lot more than I think a lot of fans, myself included, it's a lot more than what we thought. So I gotta ask, I'll start with Hal on this question. Is it, well, and the Indy Lights has said that they plan to come back in 2021. Can the series survive this pause that they're going through?
I think they can. It's going to be more of a question. It's not going to be up to the series. I think it's going to be up to the teams if the series survives. Because do they want to come back after this is over? Because they're losing a lot of money, and it's already not very financially viable to keep going down this road, especially now. So I think they can make it another year, but how that year goes is going to play the major role on if it survives long term. I think it can make it through this. It's just 2021. Can they get past that?
Yeah, Justin, I'll ask you if Indy Lights can survive, and if so, how will they do it?
They're going to have to restructure. They're going to have to try to find a way to make the cars cheaper, while also keeping the safety aspects and the part of Indy still in it. And that is a lot easier to say than it is to do. I don't know how Indy Lights can really get past 2021 without some sort of major restructure. Like you said, there are only 10 teams in the Indy Lights. The only time you really see Indy Lights teams coming out is for the race on Friday, on Carb Day, 2 days before the Indy 500. Usually you have a field of around 20 to 24 guys. It's for that race, but everywhere else, it's only 10, 20, 10, 12, 14. So if the teams are going to be looking to consolidate funds. A lot of these are proxy teams. And a lot of the bigger teams are looking to say, okay, where can we save money? Where can we save money? Well, we can save money by not having a team in the lower series. We've seen this with the Cup Series, is to the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series. You're seeing less and less of a prospect farm system, I would say, that you have in, for example, baseball, or what the NBA is doing now with the G League. or what hockey does with the AHL, the WHL. Oh, stuff like series like those where you can have guys in the farm system. Has a farm system. It's just not been plentiful. IndyCar is kind of one of the few sports where they're going to take guys from anywhere. And Indy Lights is kind of in the backseat a little bit when it comes to driver prospects. It's not a guaranteed shot that you're going to get up to the IndyCar if you go through the Indy Lights program. Now it's the same in Formula 2 and the Xfinity Series, but it's a lot tighter of a gap. So I don't know if they can survive after 2021 without some sort of major restructure, and I don't know where you would even begin to do that.
Yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I do want to put in I'll share the screen again, because just to give an idea as to how short the grid was for Indy Lights, this was it. 4 teams and 10 drivers total. You had 4 from Andretti Autosport, 3 from HMD, 2 from Bilardi, and 1 from Exclusive. Now, these, I want to clarify, these were the teams that were announced to be in the Indy Lights prior to their season starting. And likely these would have been the 10 cars that would have taken the green flag at St. Petersburg had the race been run. Now, this was going to be their schedule. I mean, it was thrown around because of the pandemic, but they were planning to go to Road America, the IMS road course, Mid-Ohio, to run the Freedom 100. That's their signature race that they put on every year, doing a race at Gateway Motorsports Park over in Madison, Illinois, close to St. Louis. You got Portland, Laguna Seca, St. Petersburg, Barber, Detroit, and Toronto. And it's unfortunate that this series is not going to be competing, especially considering that the Freedom 100 is not going to happen, because, and I'll admit, I don't really give the Freedom 100 enough credit, but in the month of May at Indianapolis, the Freedom 100 has been one of the best events that's put on during the month of May. In fact, I'll go ahead while I talk about this. The Freedom 100, even though it's only been around since the early 2000s, it has produced some fantastic racing. In fact, I'll go ahead and share the screen on this. I feel like only in the Freedom 100 can you see a finish like this.
It's almost every year with them.
Yeah,
it's almost every year. It's basic, and like that's part of the reason why I look so forward to Carb Day these days. It's not because of the Pit Crew Challenge, although I really love the Pit Crew Challenge, and Jan, that is one of the best competitions out there. NASCAR please bring that back. But you have the Freedom 100 that has been probably up there with some of the greatest races IndyCar has produced in the past decade. Hey, this is almost every single year at that racetrack where you're going to have a close or tight finish like that. Now, Indy 500 has had similar results in the past couple of years, but the Freedom 100 has been a very, very good race almost every single year. It works. So to see that go away, that's not going to make Carb Day very appealing, or not as appealing as it used to be.
Yeah. Carb Day definitely will be different this year, but as I go through these, just if there's any viewers that think that's just a one-time thing, we just showed the 2013 finish of the Freedom 100 where Peter Dempsey basically went from 4th place on the last straightaway to passing 3 cars on the outside to win it and beat Gabby Chavez, Sage Karam, and Carlos Munoz to the line. This, I believe, is from 2014, the year afterward, where you had Gabby Chavez beating Matthew Brabham to the line. That was for that Freedom 100. If you look for another Freedom 100 finish, there's one that can be viewed here. This next one, I believe, is from 2016, if it'll load. It's having trouble loading, but we've seen some great finishes in the past. I mean, Dean Stoneman, I think it was 2016, where he won the Freedom 100 in very close fashion over eventual Indy Lights champion Ed Jones. So it's always proven it's provided a really good show in the past, and it's just so unfortunate that it's not going to be happening this year, and it could have some ramifications on IndyCar. Like, I feel like it'll be a problem. It might be a problem for IndyCar in the future, but at least for this year, it could be a problem as well. And I want to get more into that because we've talked about, does this series survive? My personal take is that it can, but along with Justin, there's going to have to be some restructuring, and they'll need to try to make money in some way, shape, or form. But it helps in a way that, I mean, for one, they're not going to be making money on events, which that's a drawback. But they'll also be saving money in not damaging cars when they go to these tracks, particularly at Indianapolis, where they have the big oval setups, and those cars, if they crash, if they get totaled, they tend to cost a lot of money. But I want to ask now, as I go to Hal for this question, how does the Indy Lights season cancellation affect IndyCar and the Road to Indy ladder?
Well, obviously, with no season this year, you aren't going to see the champion get his chance next year because there won't be a champion. Of course, that's going to be one of the drawbacks of not having the season. In terms of affecting IndyCar, if the worst case scenario does happen, it would be a tremendous detriment to the development of young drivers in what is basically their farm system. And without a farm system, they'll just have to go. Basically, teams will have to search outside of IndyCar for the next best driver. Like, you already see it with Scott McLaughlin. He's a bona fide stud. We've seen it in supercars. They went outside of really open wheel to go find somebody like that. So you're going to see more of that if this is the future for Indy Lights, where there is no future. That's how that would be affected, is that you'd see a lot of big teams not giving more chances, I think, to young drivers because they're unproven now. It'll be up to the lower funded teams who have to take a chance because no established drivers will come down there. So I think that's what's going to happen, is younger drivers will be in lesser equipment because they don't get a chance to prove themselves.
Justin, what's your take on the situation?
I know it's not apples to oranges, but I think back to right around 2008 in the NASCAR Cup Series. I mean, and the NASCAR's is lower series. Because back then, and you had pretty much a healthy pool. You had rookies coming in every single year. And they started to have a Cup Series in every single game of the series. It's the bigger teams. You pretty much every single team having pretty much most of their cars, either or 2 to 3. If they had a 3-team car, they had 2 guys in the Cup Series. It's running in the Xfinity Series, running in the truck races. That created a brain drain. And now a brain drain refers to a win and like a population and goes somewhere else in terms of talent. So think about like talent in NASCAR, they went elsewhere. You weren't getting as many guys coming up. That's how that's how NASCAR got Kevin Conway as a rookie of the year. That's how you had pretty much, I mean, the only two people that came out of from 2008 to, I want to say 2013, that have been remotely good have been and Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski. And those were two guys who survived and through the one car that they were not running and as full-time cup drivers. So I could see a very similar thing where you have pretty much 5-10 years where the vets of IndyCar right now are going to be the same guys that are in IndyCar or winning at that level for the next 10 years. You see it with NASCAR still when you have Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Martin Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin. These guys have been at the top for 10 years and they haven't left. And Harvick's been on top for 20 years now. I could see a very similar thing happening to IndyCar where a driver like Alexander Rossi is going to just dominate the sport because nobody's coming up to challenge him. A guy like Scott McLaughlin and doing well because nobody's going to be able to challenge him. And as that happens, you're going to start to see fan favorites walk away with no population of talented drivers to replace them. So that is a very big problem I can see happening in IndyCar.
All right. The problem, probably the biggest one that I see is that because of the season cancellation, there's going to be at least one driver who is talented enough to go to IndyCar after this season who is not going to get that chance. Or at least they're not going to have the scholarship that is provided because, and I feel like a lot of fans don't know this, IndyCar provides a scholarship for the Indy Lights champion of a certain season. I'd say, let's take Joseph Newgarden, for example. He's one of the most popular drivers in IndyCar right now. You know, the homegrown American boy from Nashville who drives for Team Penske in IndyCar is one of the most dominant drivers, one of the drivers you expect to contend for a race win on a week-to-week basis. Newgarden won the Indy Lights champion in 2011, driving for Sam Schmidt Motorsports. I believe it was Newgarden after that first year when IndyCar offered scholarships for the Indy Lights champion to run at least 3 races, to run a certain select schedule of races, including the Indy 500. They would be provided the opportunity to throw some money at a team and go, I want to run the Indy 500. We've seen it in the past with several drivers. Joseph Newgarden, to me, is the best example that comes up because after his championship in 2011 in the Indy Lights series, he went to Sarah Fisher's team in 2012. And not only did he run the Indy 500, but he was offered the full-time ride at Sarah Fisher's team. Look at where he's at today. He's driving for Team Penske, you know, the mega dominant team in IndyCar, owned by the El Presidente, Roger Penske, who, I mean, owns IndyCar and the IMS now. Just looking at other champions of the Indy Lights who have received the scholarship to go on to compete in IndyCar. Tristan Vautier, who won the championship in 2012 in Indy Lights, went to run for Sam Schmidt's IndyCar team the year after in 2013. Sage Karam, Indy Lights champ in 2013. He went on to run a partial schedule for Dreyer and Reinbold Racing in 2014 that included a top 10 finish in the Indy 500 before going to Ganassi for a single year in 2015. And now he's been bouncing around from different rides, but he's been with Dreyer and Reinbold on a part-time basis for quite a while now. Gabby Chavez in 2014, he went on to drive for It was it was Brian Herta's team. Gabby Chavez went on to drive for Brian Herta's team in 2015 for IndyCar full-time. Spencer Pigot, 2015 champion, got a part-time ride with Ray Hall to run the Indy 500 and then spent a few years at Ed Carpenter Racing. Now he's currently looking for a ride. He's currently a free agent at the moment. Ed Jones, 2016 champion, went to drive for Dale Coyne Racing full-time the year after and finished third in the Indy 500 before going to Chip Ganassi and then to Ed Carpenter Racing, where he currently is now. Kyle Kaiser, he ran the 500. He attempted the 500 with Juncos Racing in 2018. He's still with Juncos, I believe. And then you have Pato O'Ward and Oliver Askew, the two champions from 2018 and 2019. O'Ward went on to attempt to qualify for the Indy 500 for Carlin Racing, but failed to qualify. He did run a few races for them, however, and was, in fact, I should mention, O'Ward was set to have a full-time ride with Harding Steinbrenner Racing in 2019, but unfortunately the ride never materialized because of a lack of sponsorship. And as for Oliver Askew, last year's Indy Lights champion, he's now going to be driving for Aero McLaren SP in the IndyCar Series full-time. So Indy Lights championships are a great opportunity for potential future superstars in racing. And now this year, nobody's going to get that chance. Or at least if they do get the chance, they're not going to have that additional financial backing and that all that money that would be used for an IndyCar ride for at least a few races. The scholarship would allow a driver to have a ride to try to qualify for the Indy 500. Although a lot of teams have taken the opportunity to just hire them straight out of Indy Lights and give them a full-time ride. And for the most part, and also even if you don't win the championship, it can be beneficial. Rinus VeeKay was the runner-up to Oliver Askew last year in Indy Lights, and now he's going to be running the full season for Ed Carpenter. Colton Herta was second to Pato O'Ward in 2018. 2019, he gets 2 victories in his rookie year driving for Harding Steinbrenner Racing for IndyCar. So, yeah, you don't have to win the championship to get a good ride in IndyCar or to make your way up to the next level. But that's the beauty of Indy Lights. When you show that you can compete, when you can win, it provides that next level for IndyCar teams to take a look at a young driver wanting to get in the series and be like, that driver would be a great addition to our team. Let's bring him on. And that's something that's going to be missing now. Like the drivers that are on the grid for Indy Lights this season, you have Robert McGinnis, who was in the series last year, the Pro Mazda 2000, the Indy Pro 2000 champion from 2019, Kyle Kirkwood. He was supposed to be running in Indy Lights this year. You had Rasmus Lind, also from the Indy Pro 2000 championship last year. Toby Sowery, Santiago Urrutia, David Malukas, Antonio Serraval, Nikita Latashkin, Daniel Frost, Tristan Charpentier. There's a lot of, even though it's just 10 drivers, those are still some potential talent that could be going to IndyCar. And it's going to take a step back. Like, it's going to be a 1-year gap now because of Indy Lights cancellation for 2020. Now, how it would affect the careers for the future of these drivers, we don't know. But it's going to be, there's going to be a gap there. It'll be a gap year, basically.
And the big concern is if Indy Lights are no longer is no longer going to be available afterwards. It basically comes down to now for the IndyCar, most likely you're going to have to be picking from F1. You're going to have to be picking from the formula side for drivers and talent. And you could go elsewhere. We've definitely seen with Scott McLaughlin, you could go elsewhere. But my biggest concern is IndyCar has the same sort of talent drain that NASCAR had from 2008 to 2013. That is my absolute biggest concern, because we've seen what that has done to NASCAR, and it can easily happen to IndyCar, where IndyCar would definitely be in a lot tougher of a state than what NASCAR was with its kind of talent drain.
It could be, but I'm also at the same time with Indy Lights. Like I watched David Land's video on the Indy Lights cancellation. Xfinity, you can have Cup guys dropping down and running in the series and dominating, and bringing TV eyeballs. The thing with Indy Lights is that another thing. If I feel like if they're going to come back in 2021, they need to have a stable TV contract. And that's another good point that David Land brought up in his video about the Indy Lights 2020 season being canceled. Because the Indy Lights right now, they don't have a TV contract. They don't actually have one. They've got the Freedom 100 that will show up on TV. But all the other races are behind a paywall on NBC Sports Gold, the app there. You can watch the Freedom 100 on NBCSN. Everything else you have to pay for to watch on an app. And it's unfortunate, but I mean, it does make money for at least NBC Universal. I'm not sure if it really makes anything for Indy Lights, but if they're going to try to make some money, I feel like it would be in their best interest to try to get a TV contract nailed down. Because, I mean, I remember the first Indy Lights race that I remember watching from flag to flag was 2011 at Kentucky. And I remember it vividly because Stephen Wilson led the most laps, went on to win the race, and it was on what was then Versus that eventually became NBCSN. So people can watch. They will sit down and tune in to watch these races if they're provided on television. It's just a matter of whether or not IndyCar and Indy Lights will look at the races and NBC. They got to cooperate with NBC, or more likely NBC needs to cooperate with them to try to get the races on television. But it's just a real unfortunate situation all around. Best wishes to all the crew members of these teams that are not going to be racing this year, and the drivers too, that had aspirations to do really well this season, and now it's not even going to happen. So fingers crossed and best wishes that they'll be able to, that their careers aren't sidetracked too far because of this. We've gone on about Indy Lights. Let's try to pick up the tension. Hal, please give us something good about the money team.
So define good for me. That's the real question I have, because
let's say I mean, they already have the number 50 trademarked, right?
Yeah. For lack of a better term, yes.
Okay, let's make good as any new news that has come up about them. Are there drivers being tossed around? Have they said any races that they are at least interested in running? Please, anything
Sterling,
at all.
you might be asking for a little bit too much. You know the money team; they're a very secretive bunch. They must be like locked up tight. There are no leaks coming from that ship. Absolutely no news, which means probably nothing. But maybe they're closer. I don't know. They might just be a really tight-run ship. You know, nobody gets to say anything, or else you get fired. That might be what they have going on there. They might have Carl Edwards just locked in a room negotiating right now. But that's all a bunch of might, because there is no news.
Dang. What if Carl Edwards was locked in a room negotiating with him? I don't know. I mean, if Chip Ganassi reached out to him, Carl said no. Carl's probably not coming back. Unless there's already a deal being cut with the money team. Oh no, now we've opened up the secret. Now we don't
Carl Edwards is being promised the entire purse that Floyd Mayweather makes his next fight. That's the only way I could see that happening.
Oh, gosh. All right.
They're as secretive as the NASCAR 2021 schedule was up until a week ago.
Yeah. That's well, thank you for that, Hal. This has been the Money Team Update. Again, no big news, but We'll carry on just like we usually do. And speaking of the NASCAR schedule that Justin was talking about, NASCAR has announced some schedule changes for 2021. The big one, the bombshell that was dropped earlier this week. NASCAR is going back to Nashville for 2021. The city that currently hosts the Cup Series Awards banquet starting last year in 2019 will get a Cup race in their backyard. They are going back to Nashville. Nashville Super Speedway, not the Fairgrounds Speedway. Nashville Super Speedway in nearby Lebanon, Tennessee. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it's because it is. Because the last time NASCAR raced at Nashville Super Speedway was 2011, where they had a couple of truck races, and a couple of Xfinity races. Last race they held there, Carl Edwards won the Xfinity race there in July of 2011. It's the mile and a third, I want to say, if I remember correctly, it's a clay oval, mile and a third track in close to the Nashville area. So I'm going to start with Justin on this. Nashville Super Speedway, NASCAR's going back. But realistically, is it the long-term home for racing in Nashville?
It's from Dover is the thing. It's from Dover first off. That's an important thing we gotta note here.
Oh.
This race came from Dover and not from SMI or the Speedway Corporation. I forget which one Nashville is owned by. Nashville Fairgrounds is owned by at this point. Is it? Which one is it?
I'll get on that. I think it's
okay.
ISM, but I'm not certain on that. I will get back to you on that though.
I'm all messed up on my acronyms tonight. Anyway, but at Dover, first off, I love that we're adding more diversity to the schedule, and I'm glad that Dover, because keep in mind, Dover is independent from ISM and the Speedway Corporation. That is completely independent, and so I'm glad that they're going to keep two races. And I actually think that's going to help Dover as well, because as one race at Dover is, I feel like, just the right amount. So I'm glad that they're going to keep two, and you add more diversity to the schedule. It's a 1.3. It's on concrete. I cannot complain about adding more diversity to the schedule. Is it the fairgrounds? No. I think a lot of people want to see the fairgrounds back, but it is a start, and it shows that NASCAR is willing to make drastic changes to the schedule for the 2021 season.
Yeah, and to clarify, Justin, the Fairgrounds Speedway is owned by SMI, Speedway Motorsports. So,
yep. And
Nashville Super Speedway is owned by Dover Motorsports.
Dover, yep. Dover, and that is so Dover will sacrifice one of its races. I think it's going to be the spring race. They'll keep their fall date, which I think is definitely the better race, but they'll sacrifice their spring race to go to Nashville.
Yep, they're looking to have a June 2021 spot on the NASCAR Cup Series calendar for Nashville Super Speedway. The tentative date, from what we can tell, is around mid to late June, where they're looking to host the race for the Cup Series at Nashville. Hal, your thoughts now on Nashville Super Speedway? First of all, getting a Cup race, which they never, like, NASCAR started going there in 2001, and they never got a Cup race there. Now, 20 years after the first NASCAR event there at Nashville Super Speedway, suddenly they're getting a Cup event. But is it the long-term home for Nashville racing for NASCAR?
Well, first on Nashville Super Speedway being added, I love having a new track. I mean, I love most of the tracks that we have now, but we always love a little bit of spicing it up, you know? So adding Nashville Super Speedway to the Cup Series schedule is, I'd say, is pretty good get, really, because you bring racing back to the Nashville area, which is important in getting the fairgrounds later on, because it shows if the fans can show the support next year, then that I think helps the fairgrounds movement even more. Long term, it's going to depend on how the race goes. I think that you need to have a really strong race for people to want to see more, because otherwise you're going to lose them. We've seen it with a bunch of tracks where a couple stinkers in a row and they just go, I hate watching races at that track. I'm going to tune out for that one. So it's going to be important to have a good race, a good debut for the Cup Series at Nashville Superspeedway.
Yeah. It's going to be critical to have a good race there. And another thing is that the fans really need to be behind it. Because the last time we saw a track from the past come back to the NASCAR calendar, I mean, we've talked about it before, when Rockingham was first brought back to the schedule. And initially, the fans online on social media, they loved it. They were cheering it. They were saying, NASCAR's going back to Rockingham. We've got another race there. Fantastic. Then the truck race comes there, and the stands are only half full. And the attendance was even worse the year after. And it took only 2 years before NASCAR, well, it wasn't just NASCAR deciding to leave, but the track also ran into some financial issues, and eventually it closed down again. So with Nashville coming back, they need to have the fan support. They need to have I know they're going to aim for a good product. Another concern that I have is that with the NASCAR being so aero package obsessed in recent years, they're going to put something out there on the track and people are going to complain that Nashville is the new Kentucky. And that is not a good comparison that you want to have. I mean, don't get me wrong. Kentucky area is important to have, and I think NASCAR should still race there. But the racing at Kentucky Speedway in the past hasn't really been the best, to put it mildly. As for the long-term solution, NASCAR is going to Nashville Superspeedway because the fairgrounds deal is not finalized. They're not ready to have a race there yet. So NASCAR is wanting to get their foot in the door to start. They're wanting to aggressively go after the Nashville market. So going to the Superspeedway to start, just to at least go there, I feel like we'll try. Their goal is to get a foothold on the Nashville market. And if they get enough support behind it, then they can start looking at like the promoters, SMI. They can go to local government officials and be like, okay, this race happened down the highway from us. They got a full house there, and even more in the infield. The fan support is there. The fan support is going to be good for the fairground speedway here. It can coexist with that soccer stadium you're building next door. We can have fans here. Please let us have a race here. Pretty please. Thank you. That is the goal from what I've been seeing here. If they get if they get a good race there at Nashville Superspeedway, then they can seriously consider having a race at the Fairgrounds Speedway.
Well, and here's the bottom line. They have to sell out this race.
Yeah.
They have to sell out this race because we're not talking about a track that is 60,000. It's 25,000 seats. If you can't meet the benchmark, and this is a 4-year deal. This is a 4-year deal at Nashville Superspeedway. Hey, it's a 4-year deal, and that is a little concerning to me because if you don't put on a good race in the first one, you're not – and this track definitely needs some renovations. You're not going to have a good product for 2022, 2023, and 2024. There. So this could be this could be a really good or really bad. And I do want to pull up one picture here real quick from the last time or one of the last times we were at Nashville Superspeedway. Exhibit, I want to say 35 of why Kyle Busch is not liked. They had the True Cool trophy back in the day.
Well, that race is remembered.
Yep.
Let's just say that much.
The guitar. So that's got to be the trophy first off. Bring back the guitar, and just don't have Kyle Busch win the race, and we should be good.
Well, I think that's more liable on Kyle than it is for Nashville promoters. I mean, don't get me wrong. The guitar is a great thing to have. But yeah, I just hope Kyle doesn't take it upon himself to smash it in victory lane. Because I think they were still joking about that even at the awards ceremony that year when Mike Helton said, Kyle, congratulations on your championship. Here's the championship ring. Please don't spike it on the floor. So, yeah, there's that to keep in mind. But overall, it's nice to see NASCAR expanding into Nashville. Fingers crossed that the race is actually a success, because then there might be some time to get to the Fairgrounds Speedway, which, let's be honest, that's what the fan base really, really wants deep down. Nashville Super Speedway, it might just be a foothold to get there. But in case the Fairgrounds doesn't work out, there could be a long-term place for racing at Nashville, as long as the racing there is good. Another thing to consider.
It's a unique track, so we'll say.
Yep. Another thing to talk about. We could just take this next bit and talk about it in general. The NASCAR schedule update that was leaked last week, courtesy of Jordan Bianchi of The Athletic, it has now been basically confirmed. And in fact, I want to go ahead and I'll go ahead and share the screen on this one. So here we go. This is the agenda that has been made. This is the schedule update for NASCAR and the series that are under its umbrella. The most recent update went to June 21st, I want to say, at Talladega. Now there have been more races added. Pocono Raceway is going to have a very packed weekend. The Cup doubleheader is still happening. However, there will be no fans in attendance. Pocono has already said there will not be fans in attendance for the doubleheader weekend. It starts Friday, June 26th with the ARCA Menards series. They will be running on Friday late afternoon going into the evening. Then you get 2 races on Saturday with the Truck Series running their event on Saturday before the Cup race. I believe that is a 325-mile event for the Cup Series on Saturday. Then on Sunday, you get the Xfinity Series running before the 350-mile event for the Cup Series on Sunday, June 28th. Then you go to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for 4th of July weekend. The Xfinity Series will be running on the Indy Road Course on the same day that IndyCar is running their Indy Grand Prix on the 4th of July. And Sunday, July 5th, we'll have the Cup race, the Cup Series running the Brickyard 400 on 4th of July weekend. And another thing that I probably should mention here, and this is going to be heartbreaking, but I'll get it out of the way. Indianapolis had hoped to have fans in the stands for that weekend. However, the word came down yesterday that that is not going to be the case. There will not be fans in attendance at Indianapolis. And I saw quite a few people who were outraged on this. And I'll take an example from just some Twitter comments that I saw that include the situation revolving around the country right now. Basically saying that, lamenting that fans can't go to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway with a capacity of around 300,000 seats, but they can be close together, packed tightly for protests. Well, here's the thing. If someone decides to protest, that's doing it by their own choice. The thing with the tracks is that if they open up the stands and someone gets infected, the track is held liable. And because of that, it would result in a PR nightmare. So they wouldn't want to have a situation like that unfolding. And it's a shame because having fans back, I mean, let's be honest, like even with everything going on, I would love to be back at a racetrack. We all would. But right now, we just have to deal with what's in front of us. So there will not be any fans at the Brickyard. But fingers crossed it'll happen sooner than later. Kentucky, there are going to be 4 races for that weekend. The Xfinity Series is going to be doing a doubleheader, Thursday, July 9th and Friday, July 10th. 2 weeknight races in a row at Kentucky Speedway. Then the Truck Series will run on Saturday for an afternoon event, and then the Cup Series runs on Sunday, July the 12th for a Sunday afternoon race. Oh, and one more thing I want to bring up that I've kind of glazed over. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Notice the TV providers, NBC. Fox Sports is going to be covering the Kentucky event. This marks the first time since 2000, before the Universal Television contracts, that TV networks are going to be overlapping each other in seasons of coverage. So
2006, minus the 2006 when NBC covered the 500, and then Fox took over from there.
Right. That's interesting to know. But this is more on a regular basis, which I found to be really interesting. Charlotte Motor Speedway. Yes, NASCAR is going back to Charlotte, and they are going to run the All-Star race, which, I mean, it's kind of debatable whether or not they really should be running it, but they're going to do it. They're going to have the ARCA race before the event at 4 p.m. Eastern at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Then they'll have the open event at 7 Eastern with the All-Star race to follow at 8:30 Eastern. That's Wednesday, July 15th at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. After that, the NASCAR Tour travels to Texas. Saturday, July 18th, we'll have the Xfinity and the Truck race. It's going to be interesting because the Xfinity race is going to be on NBCSN, but the Truck race is on FS1. So you'll get some interesting overlapping coverage on the same day from 2 different networks. Cup race to follow the day after on Sunday, July 19th, and that'll be an afternoon event in Texas. Then they travel to Kansas for basically Thursday through Friday. It's going to be really, really interesting to follow. The Cup race will run on July 23rd. That's a Thursday night, which, by the way, thank goodness it's a night race. Friday night and Saturday night will feature the Truck Series doing a doubleheader, July 24th and July 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern and 1:30 p.m. Eastern, respectively. So the Truck Series will have a doubleheader there. Both races on FS1, the Cup race on NBCSN. Friday, July 24th, that will be the ARCA Menards Series race on Friday night. That typically has been their season finale in the past. However, it'll be interesting to see what they do considering that event. And then August 2nd, New Hampshire Motor Speedway has been confirmed for Sunday, August 2nd for the Cup Series to run there at Loudon, New Hampshire on a Sunday afternoon. So with that, that is the current updated NASCAR schedule for Cup Series, Xfinity, Trucks, and ARCA. I guess I could ask overall thoughts on the schedule updates. I mean, even though it's something that we saw last week, I'd still like to get everyone's thoughts on it again. We'll start with Hal Leestep.
Well, after seeing Sunday's race and hearing that Bristol was considered for the All-Star race, I'm upset that it didn't end up being Bristol. I mean, if you go back and watch the Charlotte races and watch the Bristol race, I think everyone can agree, we could have used another Bristol race. Beyond that, it is going to be a brutal stretch for the drivers and crews out there. It's going to be hot, and it's going to be a brutal summer. I've got to hope that they all stay hydrated out there.
Stay hydrated and don't get heat stroke, basically. Justin, your overall thoughts on the schedule?
I see 2 blazing hot red flags on this schedule, and that is Indianapolis on the 4th of July weekend, which we knew was coming, and we knew this was going to happen. However, I have been to a race in July at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Hey, that was very hot, even though we were sitting underneath the grandstands in turn 1. That is going to be a very hot race. It is going to be in the 90s. It's in 4th of July weekend in Indianapolis. That is going to be hot. And then you have Texas as a 2:30 race Eastern Standard Time. And I mean, in that race at this point, that race is basically going to turn a steak medium rare. That's how hot it's going to be in Texas. And keep in mind, and this is going to be just absolutely just miserable for these drivers, because keep in mind, Texas is a very black surface. It's relatively new. The track hasn't really lost that texture or to turn it into more of a gray. It's going to be wicked hot down in Texas. So I'm really concerned for driver safety that week during Texas. And then you also have the All-Star race. It is what it is. It's the All-Star race. It's not really much you could say there. It is what it is. But you knew they were gonna have to fit this tracks in somehow, some way. My only wish is that they did the Dover. I think Dover should be where Texas is, just to give Texas a little bit more time to cool off. But it is what it is. You can't really change anything. You had to place these tracks in eventually. It's going to be a rough summer stretch, though, for just the entertainment factor.
Yeah, and for the drivers and crews, it's going to be a lot to cover, a lot of traveling to do, a lot of ground to cover. So, I mean, hopefully the drivers and the crews don't get too exhausted. Basically, there are some other schedules that were announced. Formula One, because I do want to bring this up. Formula One has announced that their first 8 races of the schedule have been confirmed, basically. And the first 2 events in Austria at the Red Bull Ring have been given the green light. So fingers crossed that, barring a catastrophe, there will be Formula One racing in 2020. Let's go ahead and look at the calendar. There are 8 Grand Prix confirmed as of now. Formula One has stated that further races will be announced in the coming weeks. But right now, their first 8 races are first. There will be 2 Grand Prix in Austria at the Red Bull Ring, July 3rd through the 5th and July 10th through the 12th. The second race will be known as the Styrian Grand Prix, the inaugural Styrian Grand Prix. Moving on to round 3, that at the Hungaroring in close to Budapest in Hungary, July 17th through the 19th. Quick travel from Austria. Then they'll take a week off before going to Great Britain for the Silverstone events. That will be rounds 4 and 5 set to take place. Then they'll go around Europe again. They'll continue traveling through Europe for round 6 at Spain for the Circuit de Catalunya, Barcelona, August 14th through the 16th. Then they'll take another week off and go to Belgium at Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps on August 28th and 30th. Round 8 scheduled at Monza for September 4th through the 6th. Those are the 8 races that have been confirmed by Formula One that they intend to hold, barring a major catastrophe or an upsurge in the COVID-19 pandemic. And as a matter of fact, I forgot to mention the second race for the second race at Silverstone will be known as the 70th anniversary Grand Prix, considering that Formula One was formed in 1950 and its roots are in the United Kingdom. So there's the name for the second event that will be held at Silverstone, one of the crown jewel circuits of Formula One. Justin, I'll start with you. We've talked about it. There's really not much else to address, I believe, on the subject of the schedule. But it is nice that at least the first couple of races have gotten the green light for Formula One.
Yeah, it's really good to see that Formula One will be able to go. Oh, especially considering the fact that that was a season that we all thought was going to be most jeopardy of not happening, and just due to the international borders and all the travel restrictions and everything that had to do with that. So it's going to be really good to see Formula One and getting back up on their feet and just going racing, because as we were supposed to have stuff in Australia, that unfortunately that's not going to happen this season. But I'm looking forward to seeing 22 cars on track for however many races we're going to get from Formula One this season.
Hal, your overall thoughts on the F1 schedule update?
I'm glad that we're just going to have a season. I thought this was the most in question because of everything going on. There were much more hoops that they have to really jump through than any of the other major racing series. And I'm a little questioning I'm questioning how it's going to work with Italy, because I thought they'd been hit really hard, but I presume it's getting better there to the point where this was approved. So that's also good to see. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a very interesting season to play out, because you have two races in Austria and 2 in Great Britain. That's different. So that's going to be something that we might see guys dominating 2 weeks at a time, because they have the track so figured out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what with two races being run in a row at 2 tracks. It's something that's unprecedented in Formula One. So, I mean, whether or not a different driver dominates, like let's say one driver dominates a race at the Red Bull Ring one week, and then the next week at the Red Bull Ring, a different driver is the dominant force. It's like, whoa, we're competitive here. That's awesome. It's not Lewis Hamilton running away with it. How amazing is that? So, I'm sorry. I had none of that. Dominant force. A great ambassador, great champion of the sport, by the way. But just it'd be nice to see some parity. Let's just say that much. But
unfortunately, I don't think the Great Britain races are going to lend themselves to that. I think that's going to be Mercedes. He's running with it.
I mean, who knows? I mean, anything can happen at this rate. The season was supposed to start in March, and we're not even started. It's not going to start until July. So, hey, I mean, anything's possible at this point. But just to echo the sentiments of you two, I'm just happy that there's going to be some Formula One racing this year, regardless of where it's at. I mean, even though it would be nice to go to these places, I mean, there were supposed to be 22 Grand Prix on the calendar this year, a new record for Formula One. And now the only way that we're going to be getting 22 races in 2020 is on the video game that will be coming out next month. But aside from that, it's still going to be nice just to get some racing back out there. It's already out there with NASCAR, and it's going to be out there with IndyCar tomorrow, which we're going to talk about in detail. But for Formula One, they were the series that I think we all felt was the most in trouble, or one of the most in trouble. And it's nice to see that the races now are getting confirmed, that they've gotten the green light approval to run. They didn't say anything about fans being in attendance, although I think they specified there were not going to be fans in attendance, which, completely understand, especially the time we're living in. So it'll just be nice to, I've said it enough, probably to the point of annoyance, but we get Formula One racing this year. As of right now, that's the best thing to be happy about concerning F1. So, some more news, actually. This one's kind of sad. Porsche has announced that they will cease their GT Le Mans program in IMSA competition at the end of 2020. For IMSA, that's a pretty big loss, especially considering Porsche is one of the biggest one of the biggest manufacturers that they have. And where they go from here, where Porsche or Porsche, I feel like there's two different pronunciations about it, but whatever the manufacturer does from here is not known. But it does not. They're not going to be in IMSA for 2021. Now their 2020 program will not be affected. They still plan on competing this season, but they will be leaving at the end of this racing season whenever it gets back underway. Not sure there's much else to say about that. I guess we've moved on now to one of our new regular segments of the show called Gas and Go. A quick borrow from the old Fox Sports broadcasts, and we're going to make things interesting here. I will be the moderator for this situation. Hal, Justin, I will give both of you a combined 1 minute to give your takes on these subjects. And when the time runs out after a minute, you're going to hear a pretty interesting sound. So that's all I'll say about it. I will start with Hal for this first question. Obviously we talked about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway not having fans at the doubleheader, which they had hoped to have at least some fans in at 25% capacity. However, that's not going to happen. I already gave my 2 cents a little bit, briefly touching up on it, but we'll start with Hal on this. Is it a good or bad move for the Indy doubleheader to have no fans? Again, you and Justin have a combined 1 minute. Good or bad move by Indy?
Good move because, first of all, it is going to be absolutely scorching. You're saving a lot of people from basically having to buy a lot of expensive water and a lot of heat stroke victims potentially. And it's in the times with COVID-19, it's important that you take all the precautions possible. And that includes for local businesses near Indy. They're going to have a lot of people rushing in if you have 25%, and they don't have the precautions they can take. So it's a good move.
Yeah, this isn't a battle that Indy needs to be fighting. And your goal is to get fans for the 500, not at this week, not for the 4th of July weekend. Even though you want to have fans, it's a good call. Not safe yet. Just don't do it.
Oh, all right. I didn't even have to use the sound effect that I had. So let's go on to the next question. We'll be alternating back and forth. We'll start with Justin on this next subject. Chase Elliott has been on a roll over the last few months. Well, not the last few months, but the last few weeks, the last few races. Even though he didn't have the best race on Sunday at the Food City 500, my question to you, does Chase Elliott win a cup race this month?
If he's going to do it, he's going to have to do it either at Atlanta or Homestead or Martinsville. So it's going to have to be coming in the next 2 weeks, because once we get past those couple of races, I really just don't see Hendrick having the speed to do it. So if it's going to come, it's going to be coming in the next 3 weeks, and I think he does get it done at least once in that time.
I think so as well. I think I'm going to make a prediction that he's going to win at Martinsville, because his aggressive mindset in the last couple laps, I think, is going to benefit him at a short track like Martinsville. He's going to ruffle somebody's feathers again, but I think that he can get it done.
All right, 2 for 2 without me having to ring the bell, basically. Hal, we'll go back to you to start the third question that I've got. Toyota, they've been to victory lane twice this season on the Cup side with Denny Hamlin. Can Toyota get somebody else besides Denny Hamlin in victory lane this month?
I think they can, because while Denny Hamlin has been very successful, you got 2 guys who are just due for wins for Toyota. Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr., 9 races, 0 wins between the 2 of them. And Eric Jones is probably also sick of not winning and being the odd man out at Joe Gibbs Racing. So I think one of those 3 can get it done this month, and put your money on Kyle Busch. I mean, he has to go get one at some point.
I said it with the Chase Elliott. Here's the deal. All these tracks coming up are Toyota, and Toyota. They're going to get at least 1, if not 2. Martin Truex is long overdue. Kyle Busch is long overdue. It is time, and I think Gibbs is going to get not 1, not 2, but 3 wins in the month of June.
Well, all right. So Joe Gibbs Racing predicted to be dominant in the month of June by Justin Palmer. Next, Justin, we'll start with you for this next one. Brad Keselowski, he's won 2 of the last 3 races in the Cup Series. I got to ask, is Brad Keselowski a championship contender?
Absolutely not. And this is not because as he's been gifted 2 wins by Chase Elliott. In 2019, I've seen this story for the past 5 years. Keselowski will get 3 wins. It's early on in the season. He'll get a 4th around race 24 through 26. He'll get a win in the first round, thinking, oh, everybody's thinking he's a title contender, and out in the round of 12. This has happened the last 3 years in a row. Oh, and until he gets past the second round, I am not going to consider him a title contender just yet.
I have to disagree. I think Brad Keselowski is a title contender because he has a lot to prove this year. It's his contract year. Everyone kind of counted him out with the crew chief swap at the start of the year. Here he is with 2 wins. Now, did he get them all from Chase Elliott? Yeah, he owes him a lot of presents. But who says the presents ever stop? Chase Elliott might be a really generous guy. So I think Brad Keselowski can get it done. I think he definitely has a chance.
Sorry, Hal, didn't mean to interrupt you there, but the cowbell had to come in there. And also, even if the cowbell goes off, just keep talking with your suggestion or your response. Hal, we'll start with you on this next one. We've seen Front Row Motorsports, particularly John Hunter Nemechek, has been having some really good runs for them lately, proving that, or at least trying to prove that the decision by Front Row Motorsports to hire John Hunter Nemechek for the rookie campaign this season was actually a really good decision. And we saw both Nemechek and Michael McDowell, the 2 Front Row Motorsports drivers, get a top 10 finish, not top 10, what am I thinking? Top 15 finish at Bristol. I gotta ask, man, is Front Row Motorsports getting better?
I think they are. They've progressed well from the back marker they used to be. They've had their little moments in the Summit Restrictor Plate tracks, but I think consistently they've been showing that they have a better week-to-week finish. And I think a lot of that has to do with John Hunter Nemechek, though, because he has just been probably the most impressive rookie to me this year. So I think they're slowly getting better. I wouldn't say they're a mid-tier team yet.
I mean, it helps that they went down from 3 cars to 2. And John Hunter Nemechek's been on fire, but you also have to talk about Michael McDowell. He's 23rd in the standings, and that's after a terrible Daytona 500, which is a oxymoron for me to say. So, yes, Front Row is getting better. I think they're getting some great help from Roush Fenway, because Roush has been also pretty solid this year, and I think that partnership is starting to play off a little bit. This time.
Might have to get used to that cowbell. Justin, I'll start with you on this. Austin Dillon, we really haven't talked much about him tonight really at all, or much on the show in general. However, it should be noted that Austin Dillon is actually having a quietly solid season so far. I mean, 3 top 10s, 1 top 5 in the first 9 races. It's safe to say he seems to be doing better, but now we got to ask, can Austin Dillon make the playoffs in 2020?
I am not going to say he's going to make the playoffs, and here's why. You have William Byron right behind you. I do not see any way possible that Austin Dillon is going to beat William Byron. William Byron has been a lot faster this year, or every single race. It's just a matter of time before he passes up Austin Dillon. It's just a matter of getting consistent finishes for that 24. So I think the 24 is going to pass up that 3 for the final spot, and I don't see anybody else dropping down to help Dillon out.
Yeah, I am in firm agreement. Austin Dillon is not going to make the playoffs. His average finish is 15th, which is a career best, but it's a career best, which makes me think he's going to regress back to his usual average. I don't believe he can do it. I believe William Byron doesn't even need to string together a lot of consistent performance. He just needs one win. And I believe William Byron can get one win, and that will knock Austin Dillon out.
It should be noted that the average finish amongst all the drivers right now, or at least the drivers who have competed in a race for the Cup Series, David Reagan has the highest average finish with a fourth place finish, but then again, that's only one race. Kevin Harvick, among the full-time guys, has the highest at sixth place. Just counting the full-timers, you have Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, forget Kyle Larson, Joey Logano, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, Matt Benedetto, Eric Jones, Austin Dillon. Dillon is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, he's ninth, but it wasn't as impressive as I thought. But still, career best right now in average finish, but the key is, can he keep it up? Hal, let's go back to you for this next question. We've seen some impressive runs by rookies, particularly Tyler Reddick has been perhaps the most impressive rookie so far, with a pretty stacked rookie class, considering you have Reddick, Christopher Bell, Cole Custer, and now we can throw John Hunter Nemechek in there, considering he's outperforming that front row motorsports equipment. Is there a possibility that, forget it, the possibility is there, but does a rookie make the playoffs in 2020?
Yes, and it will be Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick just loves to overperform our expectations. We set them low. He goes to RCR. We say it's RCR equipment. He and Austin Dillon, even though I have said that he won't make the playoffs, they have overperformed our expectations. But Tyler Reddick does it in a way that makes you just go, are you kidding? He did it again. He's just going to keep succeeding. And I think this year he's going to surprise everyone once again, get into the playoffs. I'd say he'd make a deep run just because that's who he is.
I really can't see him getting over Jimmy Johnson and William Byron, though. Right now, he's 40 points outside of the playoffs, roughly. I just cannot see Tyler Reddick getting in on points. And then you look at John Hunter Nemechek, that car is nowhere near a win. Cole Custer is struggling, and Christopher Bell's best track is Bristol, and that's a playoff race. I don't see any of these rookies winning in between now and the playoffs. So, no, I don't see a rookie making it this year. There's going to be a lot of guys in 16th through 20th, but I don't think it's going to be 17th through 20th. I just don't see it this year.
I feel like if any rookie's got the best chance of making the playoffs, given his performance, as long as it doesn't tail off, is Tyler Reddick. Because Christopher Bell, he's had a disastrous start to the season, minus the 2 top 10s that he's gotten recently, but I don't really know if he'll be able to keep that up. Cole Custer, he's practically nowhere, unfortunately, in that Stewart-Haas equipment. And John Hunter Nemechek, just for him to be in the top 25 or even let alone the top 20, that's a great season.
This is a great season already for him, period.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I don't expect him to make the playoffs. If he gets that win, though, if he somehow wins at Talladega or Daytona, because that's going to – I know NASCAR is determined to try to get that as the last regular season race. Somehow, if that happens, something great has happened. Justin, you're going to get the last question here on Gas and Go. The Cup Series has already announced that Nashville Superspeedway is going to be added to the schedule for 2021. What are the chances, over/under, that the Cup Series will add at least 3 new tracks, including Nashville, to the Cup Series schedule for 2021?
Gateway, Iowa. Those are the 2 tracks that have been rumored the most. I see no way a NASCAR's passing up on Gateway, and I see no way they're going to pass up on Iowa. Those are 2 big tracks, and if not, you also have Road America, you have Mid-Ohio, you have a bunch of tracks next in the lower series that you could go to that are reasonable and are ready to go for a Cup race. I see at least 3, maybe a 4 for 5th.
I also think that we'll have at least 3. I'd say Gateway and Road America, because that's my personal opinion on what they do, because you need more road courses. The fans love them, and it's nice diversity from the oval tracks. And, I think we can all agree that new tracks spice up the schedule and give everybody something to look forward to, that first new race for the next season.
That's the last cowbell on Gas and Go. I will say, with Nashville getting added to the schedule, if Gateway gets added, then, that'd be nice. Same with Iowa. But it'd be great to see another actual road course get added and not have a track that gets turned into a roval. Because Charlotte's special with the roval. If they can go to Road America, that's already an iconic facility for open wheel racing. But NASCAR has put on some really good shows there for the Xfinity Series at Road America. If they can get the Cup Series there, that's going to be an excellent show, in my opinion.
And I would also like to add, why not try if you're going to do Nashville Super Speedway, why not try Canadian Tire or Montreal? Why not?
Yeah.
Because that seems like Nashville Super Speedway was out of nowhere. Why not go up north to have a race at two absolutely fabulous racetracks?
All right. Well, gentlemen, we have reached a portion where we'd usually be making picks, but I feel like considering tomorrow has a season opening event, let's go ahead and do this. The IndyCar season preview for the NTT IndyCar Series in 2020. This was supposed to be done in conjunction with the Formula One season opener back in March, which we had set a 2-hour show to do, 1 hour previewing each season. And then COVID-19 came along and canceled both of those season openers. But not to worry, we're here today. We are going to be previewing the IndyCar Series season 2020. They will begin tomorrow night at the Genesis 300 at Texas Motor Speedway. It was a 600 miles, good Lord, 600 kilometers eventually. They have reduced it to 300 miles. It will be a 200-lap event for the IndyCar Series. And let's have a look at the grid for the 2020 season. I'll go ahead and share the screen because there are a lot of faces that got changed to some different places for 2020. And I feel it's worthy that we talk about them. So let's get to it. Charlie Kimball to start with. Let's start with AJ Foyt Enterprises. They will be running Chevy engines again. It should be noted that ABC Supply, a longtime sponsor of the team, withdrew their primary sponsorship. They will still be on the car for a few races, but it's definitely not going to be as much as it was in the past. But Charlie Kimball, who has spent the last couple of seasons running for Carlin Racing, last year he was a part-time driver. He returns to running full-time for AJ Foyt Racing. He replaces Matheus Leist, the Brazilian youngster, in that number 4 car. Tony Kanaan will scale back his schedule for 2020. This is suspected to be his farewell tour, his final season that he will be running. He is expected to run all of the oval races in IndyCar this season. That includes the Indy 500 in the number 14 car. He will split that time with Canadian rookie Dalton Kellett and Sebastian Bourdais. Kellett, in the meantime, will be running a third entry for Foyt in the Indy 500. Moving on to Andretti Autosport. They have quite the packed roster, considering their own team that they have. They have 3 full-time cars with Zach Veach, Alexander Rossi, and Ryan Hunter-Ray, 3 Americans filling out their full-time spot, as well as the popular Canadian racer James Hinchcliffe, the mayor of Hinchtown, running 3 races for Andretti Autosport. That includes the first 2 races of the season at Texas and Indy Grand Prix, as well as the 500, running a 4th entry for Andretti Autosport. Andretti Harding Steinbrenner Autosport. This was the team that merged with Andretti in the offseason, the former Harding Steinbrenner team. Colton Herta will stay in the 88 car to run in his sophomore season for the Harding Steinbrenner bunch. And Andretti Herta Autosport with Marco Andretti and Curb Agajanian Marco Andretti returns to the 98 car for, I believe this is the third year in a row that he will be running car number 98 in the IndyCar Series. And they will be powered by Honda. Moving on to a couple Chevy teams. Aero McLaren SP making the biggest noise in the offseason when McLaren has announced that they will be stepping up full-time into IndyCar, partnering with the former Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports team, along with Aero Technologies providing sponsorship for two full-time drivers, Patricio O'Ward and Oliver Askew. Both are former Indy Lights champions. For O'Ward, this will be his first full season in IndyCar, although he is not technically a rookie. For Askew, the defending Indy Lights champion, this will be his rookie campaign. In addition, Fernando Alonso will be attempting the Indy 500 in a third entry for the team. He will be running for car number 66 at Aero McLaren SP for the 500. Carlin Racing, they're in a bit of a tight puzzle right now because they are looking for a driver of the 31 car. They've announced that 31 will not be at the season opening race at Texas. Based on a lot of reports, they've been considering drivers such as Felipe Nasr or Sergio Sete Camara to be running the 31 car for at least chunks of the season. However, that car will not be showing up to the season opener tomorrow at Texas. For the 59 car, that will be split by Connor Daly and Max Chilton. Daly will be running the season opener at Texas. Max Chilton, along with some other races, Max Chilton will be running all of the road course events in the 59. He will not be running any ovals with the exception of the Indy 500. Chilton has primarily quit oval racing, but he has stated that he will be coming back for the 500 to attempt that race. And Connor Daly, it's an interesting situation because he's going to be running the full IndyCar schedule, but it's not going to be for one team. Carlin Racing is just one of the teams he'll be driving for. We'll get into the others later. Chip Ganassi Racing under Honda engine power. They've expanded their grid this year from 2 full-time teams to 3. Scott Dixon, the 5-time champion and defending Rookie of the Year Felix Rosenqvist return in cars 9 and 10 respectively, but they've added the 8 car for Rosenqvist's Swedish countryman Marcus Ericsson, who moves over from Aero Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports to drive the number 8 car. Husky Chocolate will be a primary sponsor for the former F1 driver, former Sauber driver from Sweden. On to Dale Coyne Racing. They will have 2 full-time cars, one in conjunction with Vassar Sullivan, another with Team Go. Santino Ferrucci replaces his former teammate Sebastian Bourdais in the number 18 car for Dale Coyne Racing with Vassar Sullivan. Sealmaster will be the presenting sponsor for that car. Team Go will enter the sport in conjunction with Dale Coyne and field a car for Spanish speedster Alex Palou to drive the full season in the number 55 Honda. Dragon Speed, the former the team co-owned by Jay Penske, the IMSA squad, they will be running at least the Indy 500. They intend to put Ben Hanley in the car again. Of course, Hanley last year qualified that car for the 500 in 2019. Dreyer and Reinbold Racing, they plan on running a partial schedule. They have 1 car set with Sage Karam. It appears that they have a 2nd car planned. However, driver has not been announced. Ed Carpenter Racing returns with the popular Indy native Ed Carpenter. He will run the Indy 500 again, really all the oval events. Meanwhile, Connor Daly will be running all of the road course races. So this is where Daly is going to be running most of his races. He'll run all the road course events for Ed Carpenter, all the oval events for Carlin Racing. And as for the Indy 500, because Carpenter is running there in the 20, Connor Daly will run the number 47 for Ed Carpenter in an Air Force-sponsored car. So Daly will be running the full season, but it's going to be interesting to keep track of what cars he is in. And as for Carpenter Racing, Renus VK, the runner-up, the Dutch runner-up of the Indy Lights campaign last season to Oliver Askew, has been picked up to run the full season at Ed Carpenter and run for Rookie of the Year. Jack Harvey and Meyer Shank Racing are going full-time this year. That's something we haven't seen in the past. Jack Harvey, the popular British driver, they have been upgraded to a full run at the campaign this season. Harvey ran a few races last year and had some really notable finishes, including a podium finish at the Indy Grand Prix, if I remember correctly. Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing, they will be running 2 full-time cars, Graham Rahal and Takuma Sato. Sato, the 2017 500 winner. Of course, Graham Rahal, the son of team co-owner Bobby Rahal. Rahal and Sato return again. This is their 3rd year in a row that they are running those cars. And Spencer Piggott will be running the Indy Grand Prix and the 500 in conjunction with Citroën Buell Autosport in the number 45 car. So Piggott, the former Indy Lights champion, will be back to run at least the races there at the Brickyard. Then we get to Team Penske. Team Penske, this is a big one. Team Penske will be fielding 3 cars full-time. First, you have the defending series champion Joseph Newgarden. Then you have Will Power and Simon Pagenaud. Those latter 2 drivers are Indy 500 champions and previous IndyCar Series champions. They will also field a 4th car for Elio Castroneves, the longtime veteran of the sport, to try to get that elusive 4th Indy 500 win. And also a new one that I have not seen in the past. However, the reference says this is from a Marshall Pruitt article, Racer.com. Top Gun Racing and former open-wheel Indy Lights stable driver R.C. Enerson is looking to run the Indy 500 with that team. So that's the grid, the drivers, the teams that will be competing in IndyCar this season. Here's a look at the updated schedule. This is scaled back from what it was before. I believe there were around 17 or 18 races initially. As a result of the pandemic, 7 races have been canceled, 3 rescheduled, 3 replacement races added. But here we are with the current schedule right now. They will start tomorrow night at Texas Motor Speedway, then take a month off before going to IMS for the GMR Grand Prix, the Indy Grand Prix, a doubleheader at Road America, July 11th and 12th, then another doubleheader at Iowa Speedway. So even though Iowa lost its NASCAR races, they will get 2 IndyCar events. Then they will take a few weeks off before going to Mid-Ohio on August 9th for the Honda Indy 200, then the 500, 104th running of the greatest spectacle in racing at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, rescheduled for August 23rd. After that, they will go to the Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway, just outside St. Louis, for the Bomarito Automotive Group 500, one of the more popular races of the season. The Grand Prix of Portland for Portland International Raceway has been moved to September 13th. Then a doubleheader at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Following that, IndyCar will be racing in October for the first time since, I believe, 2013. But they will be racing another event at the IMS Road Course on October the 3rd, and then they will finish up the season at the rescheduled Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg on October the 25th. So in the meantime, I'm going to take a deep breath and shut my mouth because I've been talking for quite a bit. But I got to say, I guess we'll just ask this. We've previewed the season. We've gone over the teams, new faces in different places. Let's make some picks for the championship just because. We'll start with Hal Leestep on this.
All right. Who's
our champion?
Who's getting cursed by me predicting them to win the championship?
Actually, I'm sorry. Before I'm sorry. Let's just think about this. Tell you what. Let's make 3 picks because we're going in depth on this. Let's make a Rookie of the Year pick, Indy 500 winner pick, and championship pick.
All right, are we doing all three, or should I do one then trade off?
Let's do one and trade off.
Okay. And
So let's start with Rookie of the Year.
Rookie of the Year. Okay.
I'll pull the thing back up. So full-time rookies, you have Palou, Askew, Dalton Kellett. He's running enough races. We'll throw him in there. And VK. Enerson, unless they add more races, will not count.
Okay. For Rookie of the Year, I'm going to have to go with the man who nearly hit me with a scooter once, Oliver Askew. I mean, he is the defending Indy Lights champion and just an impressive young talent. I think he'll get it done.
Yeah, it's quite the interesting story. If there's another time, we may explain to the audience at another day the story behind that. But Justin, your pick for NTT IndyCar Series Rookie of the Year for 2020.
I'm going to go differently from you because I know that Sterling is not going to pick Askew if I pick Askew. So I am going to go with Rhinus. I think for some reason this is going to be a pretty good year for Ed Carpenter. I think they can do solid with their driver lineup, and they might win they might win a race or two this year. I think Rhinus will kind of lead them going forward.
Interesting. Renus VK. I mean, I think he might do better than Spencer Pigot. But then again, I feel like the only driver that I know that has done outstanding in that 21 car ever since it got formed was Joseph Newgarden. He was there for a year, and then he left to go to greener pastures at Penske. The drivers that Ed Carpenter's had since then in that car are J.R. Hildebrand. He only lasted a season before he got cut, and Spencer Pigot, who didn't really do much in 2 years in that car. Renus VK could be the change, but that's not who I'm keeping my eye on. And I think Alex Palou could actually do really well in that 55 for Dale Coyne. I think that's something that needs to be mentioned because he showed a lot of speed in off-season testing. But I think, honestly, just going off of speed and what we've noticed in the past and past observations, I got to go with Hal and say Oliver Askew. I think there's just so much talent behind Oliver Askew that it's too much to just ignore completely. And
I think it's going to be a good battle, though.
Oh, yeah, it'll be a really good battle, considering IndyCar tends to be really competitive throughout the lineup. So it'll be a great battle to watch. I think it's going to be between Askew. It'll be between Askew, Palou, and VK because Dalton Kellett, he's going to be running a lot of races, but I don't think it'll be enough to really overpower Askew, Palou, or VK. I think Askew will get it. VK will be close, though. And I think Palou, I think Askew will be ahead, and it'll be a toss-up between Palou and VK for the second spot in Rookie of the Year standings. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, Hal, I'll start with you again. Because it is the pinnacle of the series, the premier event of the sport for IndyCar, even though IndyCar isn't technically a sport, it's an organization, but let's just, you know what, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. Who wins the Indy 500? Just just random prediction.
Random prediction. Ah, man. You got a lot of guys in there where you're kind of going, they're only running a few races, but they're very talented, like Castroneves and Hinchcliffe. I'm going to have to go with a talented young Swede, Felix Rosenqvist, last year's Rookie of the Year. Got knocked out on lap 176 last year, and I think that he's been impressive enough to where he's going to make a run.
All right. Felix Rosenqvist, early 500 prediction. Now, again, these will probably change by the time the 500 actually comes around, but we'll see if those predictions stay. Justin, your way too early 500 pick.
I cannot ignore this guy for for too much longer. I have to go with Simon Pagenaud for this race. It just feels right. He was second in IndyCar in points last season, and I just have a feeling that he's going to be the one to come out on top. He's not going to be my title pick, but I think winning the Indy 500 is going to be either the next best thing or the better thing, depending on how you look at it.
All right. You're picking the defending 500 winner from last year. Okay. I feel like, for my pick for the 500, I think it's going to be an American guy. Pagenaud, he did marvelously last year. He did what he had to do to win that race. It's back and forth, honestly, for me, because, I want to say Joseph Newgarden has a chance, but then again, Newgarden he hasn't shown me much since he went to Penske at Indianapolis. I feel like, because there's a long-standing rumor there at Penske where if you want to cement your drive, if you want to guarantee an opportunity there at Penske, you have to win an Indy 500. We've seen it with Will Power, and we saw it last year with Simon Pagenaud. If you want to guarantee your spot there, you've got to win an Indy 500. And I think Newgarden, in the past, he just hasn't really shown a lot of speed in the event. The last time I think he was a serious contender for the win was 2016, and that year he ran with Ed Carpenter. I feel like Newgarden can be a contender, but it's not going to be enough. So I'm not picking Newgarden. I'm going to pick the guy who single-handedly won over the Indianapolis American crowd last season with a spirited drive from the back, shaking his fist at Oriol Servia going down the front stretch at 220 miles an hour because he was that ticked off at getting cut off, and he almost damn near won the race last year. He almost won it last year. It was one of the best chases to the finish I've ever seen at the Indy 500. I feel like he's going to have such a fire lit underneath him. I think Alexander Rossi becomes a two-time winner of the Indianapolis 500 in 2020. I mean, he's that driven to win this event. I mean, I know in his first year that he won, it amazed me because the first year he won it as a rookie in 2016, but that was mostly because of fuel mileage. And he actually faced some criticism for how he handled his victory, which, I mean, you just won the Indy 500 as a rookie. I mean, how are you supposed to react, basically? That's what I say to that. But I think Rossi, at the same time as a rookie, that had just been outcast from Formula One, because he was in contention for a ride there in F1, even at a low competitive team. There was some talk that he might go back to F1. But in my opinion, when he made the decision to go to Andretti Autosport, when he was picked up from there, he made the commitment to be in IndyCar for the foreseeable future. I mean, he and Joseph Newgarden are the next big American stars in open wheel racing for the United States. And I feel like I could probably even throw Oliver Askew and Colton Herta into that mix if they become really, really successful in the future. But just from last year, I think Rossi is the early favorite, in my opinion, to win the 500. Enough about that. Let's go and talk about championship picks. Hal Estep, your 2020 IndyCar champion pick is?
It is the defending champ, Joseph Newgarden. He's a two-time champion, and he's 29 years old. He's in his prime. He's not even close to exiting it. I don't see how he doesn't continue to build on what he's already – this amazing career he already has.
All right. Justin, your pick.
The reason why I did not pick this driver for the Indy 500 was because as last year, the title got away from him. I think instead of winning the 500 this year, Rossi gets his first title. I think it is time, and Rossi is going to get the win in for the title. Oh, I can see him doing well at the road courses, or I think that's going to be enough for him. And I see him walking away with the title in hand in St. Petersburg. Give me Rossi for the title this year.
All right. This kind of throws me into a pickle because now I got to think, should I go with one of my fellow panelists and make their pick and kind of ride off their coattails, or should I be original and pick somebody else? Honestly, this is tough because I feel like Simon Pagenaud, I mean, the usual suspects are going to be competing for the championship because you got Pagenaud, you got Power, you got Newgarden. I mean, you got the Penske bunch, you got Ganassi, who's going to be competing, or at least Scott Dixon is. Rosenquist might pick up the pace, and Ericsson, I don't really know what to expect from him because historically, third and sometimes fourth Ganassi entries haven't done very well, historically speaking. Then you got the guys from Andretti. I think Rossi's clearly the leader of the pack because Hunter Ray, he's won a championship before, and I think he's starting to get past his prime. Zach Veach, he needs to show me something this year if he wants to keep that ride at Andretti. He's got to do something. If not, he's probably going to be out of that car. Marco Andretti, well, he's occupying the seat, so there's that. Colton Herta, I feel like Herta can do pretty well, but I think he's got to get maybe another year. He's got to have another year of being a big contender. I think top 3 would be a good goal for him. For the championship, though, I mean, I don't know. You know what? I might be, yes, I'm going to write off somebody's coattails. Forgive me, Justin, for stepping on them, but I think Alexander Rossi's the championship favorite, too. Although, unlike that first prediction, I think Rossi, he wins the 500 and the championship in the same year.
When was the last time someone did that?
Good question. You'd have to go back. I think Dario Franchitti did it in 2010. Let's see. 2011, Dan Weldon won the 500. Dario won the championship. It wasn't 2012 or 2013 or 14. It was almost done in 15. It arguably should have been done in 15 had there not been double points for that last godforsaken event. Juan Pablo Montoya should have won the 2015 championship. And that should have been 500 and championship in the same year. But that did not happen. I think, 2010 is the last time.
So it's been a decade.
Yeah. Not even in the 20 not in 20 well, okay, 2020 just started, but 2010 was the last time it happened when Dario Franchitti won both the Indy 500 and the IndyCar Series championship in the same year. So there's that. And even then, before that, 2008 with Scott Dixon. Ironically, both of them drove for Ganassi during those respective years. So, that covers the early IndyCar predictions and previewing the season and everything going on. We've gone over the 2-hour window for the show. However, we only have one segment left, and that's to make some picks. And let's get into it. Hal, I'll start with you. We'll start with the IndyCar season opening Genesis 300 at Texas Motor Speedway tomorrow night. I'm going to pull up the grid back up once again. If the entry list has been put up, I'll put that. But I don't think the entry list for the race has actually been put up. But I'll get this back up and running. So, making predictions for the IndyCar season opener. Who wins tomorrow night?
I'm going to have to go with my championship pick, Joseph Newgarden. He won there last year, and he's got the experience there to win, and I just don't see him getting this season off to a bad start. I think he's going to start incredibly strong.
All right. So Hal is picking Joseph Newgarden for the Genesis 300. Justin, your pick.
I am going to go with the guy I said who's going to win the title. He's got to get off to a fast start, or give me Alexander Rossi carrying the momentum into the Indy Grand Prix. He'll have a month to celebrate it, and then it'll be game on from there.
Rossi, I think it was last year that he made one of the best saves I've ever seen and behind the wheel of an Indy car. I mean, that car was sideways. It was
gone.
Yeah, it was gone, and he saved it from crashing. I mean, that in itself is incredible. Let's see. For my pick to win the Genesis 300, I'm actually not going to pick Joseph Newgarden, and I'm also not going to pick Alexander Rossi. I think it's going to be someone who has become a really good oval racer as his career has gone on in IndyCar. I'm talking about Will Power. Will Power has, over the years, improved himself to be a really, really good oval racer. He's been superb on road courses throughout his career. But winning the Indy 500 in 2018 really cemented the fact that he has become a great oval racer too. And I think Will Power's got enough speed. He's got enough experience. I mean, he's one of the more experienced guys in the IndyCar garage now in the paddock. It really suits him. And I feel like, I mean, he's won at Texas before too. That's something else to keep in mind. He's won there before. I feel like he can do it again. Will Power, he'll start off the season strong and make a statement by winning the season opener tomorrow night. So those are our picks for IndyCar. Let's move on to all of the NASCAR races that are going to be unfolding, and there's going to be a lot. So let's knock those out of the way. Starting with the truck race that will be held at Atlanta Motor Speedway, the NGRATS VetTix Camping World 200 for the truck series. The qualifying results were put up recently. It was a random draw for the pole, and I will go ahead and share the screen now. Christian Eckes will start on the pole for Kyle Busch Motorsports. Tyler Ankrum will share the front row in his GMS Racing number 26 Chevy Silverado. We look at the grid. You have Brett Moffitt and Austin Hill there. Kyle Busch will start 6th. Zane Smith, who finished 3rd at Charlotte last week, he'll start in 7th. Other notable guys, I mean, you got Derek Kraus, Todd Gilliland. Chase Elliott is running again for GMS. He'll start 13th in a Hooters-sponsored Chevy Silverado. You have 3-time champion Matt Crafton, Stuart Friesen, Ty Majeski, Rafael Lassard. Ryan Truex is running for Nice Motorsports this weekend. Ross Chastain is also running. There are 40 trucks on the starting grid. Those that failed to qualify or they just they were excluded from the order because of owner points. Norm Benning, Tim Veens, Trey Hutchins, Bryant Barnhill, Dawson Cram, Parker Kligerman, and David Reagan. Reagan was supposed to be, or at least he was on the entry list in another DGR Crossley machine. His teammate, Tanner Gray, will be starting 21st. So out of these 40 drivers, who is going to win the VetTix Camping World 200 at Atlanta Motor Speedway? We will start the picks with Hal Eastep.
Last time I saw Kyle Busch in a truck field, I picked him, and with my luck, somehow I would manage to pick the week where Kyle Busch doesn't win. I'm not going to let that get to me. I know Kyle Busch in truck equipment. I know how good he is. They're not going to mess up his car again. I can guarantee you that. I think Kyle Busch is going to go out there and get the win.
Okay, so Hal's taking the easy route. Yep. Again. Justin, are you also going to be riding the coattails and picking the shortcut?
I cannot pick Kyle Busch to lose 2 races in the truck series in a row. I cannot do it, even with Chase Elliott. And there's no way Chase Elliott's going to get 2 on Kyle. Kyle is going to win. He's starting 6th instead of 27th like he did last time. There's no way that 51's and it's not going to be out front at the end of the race.
Okay, then. We have 2 for Kyle Busch. I guess there's kind of an unwritten rule that we have amongst ourselves that if the first 2 pick Kyle, the other has to pick Kyle, I guess. I don't know. Or maybe that's just something I'm thinking myself. I probably should pick Kyle. I really, really should. I mean, I really should. No, I can't. I can't do it. I can't do it. I cannot do it.
As you click on Grant and Finger.
Is that your pick?
Finger. But I can't do it. I'm not picking Kyle Busch. I think he's going to dominate the race, and then something is going to happen on the last pit stop. I feel like that's what's going to happen.
Good luck to that crew member.
Yeah, good luck to the crew member. And, I mean, I think, honestly, it's going to happen again. I think Chase Elliott is going to win another race, and this time it'll be a lot more meaningful because it's Atlanta. Chase, even though he wasn't born in Dawsonville, at least I don't think he was, he might have been. I don't know. I could be dead wrong, and I apologize in advance if I'm wrong about that. Sorry, Chase Elliott fans. But Chase Elliott winning in what is sure to be Elliott country out in Atlanta, out in Georgia. Georgia, that with Bill Elliott from Dawsonville, Chase Elliott, I feel like he's got enough momentum riding on his side that he takes that truck to victory lane again. After Kyle Busch screws up at something. Or his pit crew messes it up. So, yeah, that's my pick for the truck race. We have Justin, Hal, you 2 are taking Kyle Busch, and I'm going against the grain with Chase Elliott. Let's have a look at the other race that is happening, the other NASCAR event happening tomorrow, the Echo Park 250, also in Atlanta. Noah Gragson drew the pole for the event. In fact, it is a Junior Motorsports 1-2-3. Gragson, Daniel Hemrick, and Justin Allgaier. Boy, Gragson better worry about Allgaier starting right behind him. Well, he's got the pole, so he'll probably take the outside. Justin Haley, well, actually, now that I think about it, the outside maybe isn't the best thing because Allgaier could, get loose and clean out Gragson. No, I'm kidding. I'm not actually sure Allgaier's the type to do that. But you never know. We'll see. Justin Haley will start 4th for the Colleague Racing Chevrolet. Harrison Burton, the highest starting Toyota, in 5th. And then Austin Cindric, the highest starting Ford, in 8th. It should be noted that Kyle Busch is not in this race. So who knows? I mean, anyone can win this. How about that?
Hooray!
Hal, who wins the Echo Park 250 at Atlanta?
I think it will be a race of redemption for Justin Allgaier, and he will win without knocking Noah Gragson into the wall. I think cooler heads will prevail. Justin Allgaier will be the classy guy, and he'll go and win the right way.
All righty. Justin, your pick.
I really am tempted to go with Justin Allgaier. However, knowing your track record, I am not going to.
Come on now.
So, I am going to go with a guy that is looking for his first career win in any of the major 3 series. It is time for Daniel Hemrick to get his first win. Period.
Wow. All right. Bold prediction. Daniel Hemrick wins a NASCAR race this weekend. How about it? Let's see. For my pick, I don't think it's going to be Noah Gragson because I feel like he'll just fade back and then he'll probably retire or something will happen. Justin Allgaier, he's not really the type to seek out redemption. But then again, we saw what Jeff Gordon did to Clint Boyer, and that was unexpected. 2012. Justin Haley, I'll be surprised. I got to say, Justin Haley has been doing really well recently on the 1.5 miles, and it really hasn't gotten a lot of attention. He was actually running really well at Charlotte before getting caught up in a late accident. Harrison Burton, he's kind of tailed off ever since his hot start to the year. Riley Herbst, he's done pretty well. I mean, he's outperformed my really low expectations of him, but I still feel like he needs some time. And Ryan Sieg, he's just been nowhere, it seems. But as I look through here, also Brett Moffitt's been having a really, really good, he got a top 10 finish for our motorsports. I mean, he was 6th at Charlotte. That in itself deserves a round of applause for Brett Moffitt. And that's a brand new team, too. That should be mentioned. Brand new team for this year. But for my pick, I'm going to go with Austin Cindric. I think this is where he can get his first oval win. Just based on his previous track records with Charlotte and Texas, tracks that are really similar to Atlanta, Cindric has clearly shown that he's getting better, really, really good at running oval racing and not strictly a road course ace. I think Cindric can get it done this weekend, and I think he gets it done tomorrow at Atlanta. Now let's have a look at the Cup race for Sunday, June the 7th, the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500. Chase Elliott got into it with Joey Logano last week. This weekend, he will start on the pole with Eric Almirola alongside. And, won't you looky there, Joey Logano is starting right behind Chase Elliott.
Don't you love it when this happens?
This won't go bad at all. At all. Let's see. Other notables. Kyle Busch is the highest starting Toyota in 4th. It's actually a long gap from the Chevys because then you have Chase Elliott in 1st, but then you go to Alex Bowman in 8th. Just something of note there. Chris Buescher starting 13th. He's had kind of an anonymous season so far. Ryan Newman and he's got a new sponsor this week, Progressive. He will start 17th for Roush Fenway Racing. Matt Kenseth 19th for Chip Ganassi. As we look at the starting grid, there are 40 cars listed. I will start once again with Hal Eastep, your pick to win the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500 at Atlanta.
Well, we're in Georgia. We are in Chase Elliott country. And, the only thing that makes me want to question picking him is the fact that Joey Logano is right behind him. But I don't think Joey Logano will wreck him right from the start, and they would get some distance between each other. If he did, he'd have a short day because they'd call him into the hauler. I think that Chase Elliott will get the win. He's been pretty good in his short history at Atlanta, and it's a track that has eluded him for a win, and I feel like he'd be extra motivated. It's basically his home track. He needs to go get the win there.
Justin, your pick.
I would agree with this. However, I am starting to notice a trend. 2017, the winner was a Ford. 2018, the winner was a Ford. 2019, the winner was a Ford. I think that trend continues. And knowing how these trends continue, there's been one guy or one crew chief that has won twice at Atlanta the past 3 years. That crew chief is Paul Wolfe. However, I am not going with Paul Wolfe for his team. I am going with Ryan Blaney. To get his first win of the season, it has been long overdue since Blaney got a win. And I know people have been waiting for this one for a while. He'll be starting in 7th. And as much as I want to say Keselowski gets his 3rd win of the season, I just think Blaney has been long overdue from over 2 months. A couple months ago, he should have had a win by at the time we got through the first 4 races. He'll get one now.
All right. So let's see. We have one pick for Chase Elliott. We have another pick for Ryan Blaney. Oh, so that means I got to make my pick now. I gotta be honest. I'm kind of struggling to think of somebody I could pick for my my pick to win. Um, yeah, I'm having a rough time. I'm trying to think of someone I feel like could, because I want to be original and pick someone that's maybe out of left field, but at the same time, I don't want to stray too far out there. I don't know. As strange as it is, I'm leaning kind of toward Eric Almirola because he's starting on the front row. And if you remember last year's event in Atlanta, he actually ran really, really well in the first stage. In fact, I think he won the first stage, if I'm correct. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Almirola has run pretty well in Atlanta in the past. I mean, he also has a tendency to run really well at tracks that or maybe not just tracks, but when you probably aren't even thinking about Almirola being a threat to win, he runs pretty well. I mean, the first prime example of that was Kansas at 2012. Who expected Almirola to lead 69 laps and compete for a win for the most part up until he crashed? I certainly didn't, and I was in attendance for that race when it happened. Chicagoland 2018. Yeah, he was considered a little more highly because he was in Stewart-Haas equipment, but did anyone really think he was going to go out and lead 70 laps and the most laps of the race and compete for the win? Probably not. I don't think so.
Richmond last year. Texas.
Yeah, Texas too. He's got the speed. He just hasn't had the luck. He hasn't been able to close it out. And at the same time, I'm considering Keselowski just because, he's been really good at Atlanta in the past. But you know what? I'm feeling gutsy. I think by some miracle, the stars align and that Eric Almirola gets his third career Cup win on Sunday.
All right.
It'll be. I gotta admit, I'll be amazed if I am somehow correct on this. I'm taking a gamble on this. I'm just putting that out. But hey, I picked Matt DiBenedetto last week and thought that was a confident decision. I mean, not dogging on DiBenedetto because he got in a crash that wasn't his fault, but it's so hard to pick these things nowadays. Anyway, that's the race for Atlanta, but that's not all of the races that are happening because there is going to be one Cup race on Wednesday, June the 10th. On Wednesday night, the Blue Emu Maximum Pain Relief 500 at Martinsville. Martinsville Speedway is going to be having a night race, 500 laps on a Wednesday night, June the 10th. And considering there's really no entry list, we'll just, I'm not going to share a screen for it, but we'll just make our picks like this. Hal, we'll start with you again. At Martinsville, first official night race that they're going to do there. Who wins it?
It's a Blue Emu race, and, the irony in me wants to say Bubba Wallace. But I mean, that'd be a real bold pick to make. I'm going to go with old 7-time. I keep doing it because I just want to see him go do it. Come on. He has the best average finish out of everyone that is going to be racing at Martinsville. I don't think that means much because lately at Martinsville, it didn't matter for him. He's had rough races there. But I feel like it's just time. He's had good runs this year. He's looked a lot better than he did last year, that's for sure. I think Jimmy Johnson gets it done.
All right. I mean, he's won there before several times. So, Justin, your pick for the 500 lap event at Martinsville Wednesday night.
I said in our Gas and Go segment that Toyota was going to win 3 races in the month of June. However, I am not doing that for Martinsville. Chase Elliott winning at Martinsville has been long overdue. Probably, how many times have we had Chase Elliott in contention for the win at Martinsville in the final closing laps of the race, and he doesn't get it? This type of track suits Chase Elliott. They cited ends. will go off in Dawsonville. Oh, give me Chase Elliott, and not at Atlanta, but he's going to win Martinsville.
All right. So we have, remind me again, one for Jimmy Johnson, one for Chase Elliott. It seems like we're kind of along a Hendrick Chevy going to win this event. Let's see. Brad Keselowski won the spring race here in a Ford last year. Martin Truex won the fall race in a Toyota last year. We're going along Chevy Hendrick lines. I am also going to pick a Hendrick Chevy, but I don't think it's going to be Chase Elliott. And I don't think it's going to be Jimmy Johnson either. And I don't think it's going to be Alex Bowman either. If you remember in the fall, William Byron ran really well in this race in the fall last year. He had a runner-up finish and was closing in on Martin Truex. I know Byron hasn't had the best start to this season, but I feel like they've got to get on track at some point. And I feel like if they want to get back on track, this is a great place to do it. They can really make a statement and say that William Byron's Cup career is not a fluke. Get him out there and see him win his first career Cup race at Martinsville Speedway Wednesday night.
Also, can we all agree that Bubba Wallace winning the Blue Emo 500 would be the most perfect result?
That would be one of the funniest things ever.
Sweet, sweet karma. I want to see it happen.
The interview
and I don't care if
afterwards,
it's I don't care if rain is the cause of it. It could be Hurricane and Darian or Hurricane and Dawson for all I can. If Bubba Wallace wins Martinsville, oh boy.
Oh, just wait for the post-victory tweet afterward. I wonder if he would dog on Blue Emu, considering the kind of personality he is. He probably would.
Peace out, y'all.
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, we've made our picks, and I've talked for way too long. We've basically reached the victory lap, just parading around and wrapping up the show. That's going to do it for us. Are there any last words that either one of you guys want to say?
Should be a fun week of racing. And we have this is going to be a crazy week.
Yeah.
In racing. We'll have a lot to talk about next week. And hopefully we'll have just as much fun on Wednesday night as we did on Sunday.
Absolutely. Hal, anything you want to add on?
I'm just excited for IndyCar to get started up. I think as much as we love NASCAR, we love a little bit of variety. It's going to be fun to see some open wheel racing again.
Oh, for sure. And by the way, something that we didn't even mention, but I feel like it should bring up, it's going to be the first official race for the windscreens on these cars. So it'll be fun to see those in action, like in actual action, not just on iRacing. So there's that. But we've made our picks. We've gone on for quite a bit, and that's going to do it for our show. For my panelists, Justin Palmer and Hal Eastep, on behalf of both of them, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and be kind to one another, respect each other, and understand one another. Together, we will get through this difficult time. Until next time, I'm Sterling Siemens, signing off.